And when you look on cmntv.org, you can see when it's scheduled to show because they'll like play it. Yeah.
Oh, so it won't just play one time. You can watch it another time. I'll have to get that information from you maybe on Monday at the office.
Absolutely. And I can also I don't know where my hard drive is. Like I was hoping it was here, but on my hard drive, like I can keep the show. Since we're going live to YouTube, I can text you and say, okay, like here's our show. And then you can slice it up, like whatever you want to do. You can share it on social media. You can show it to your family. But I'd love for one person to just come on my YouTube channel and subscribe. That's like my only ask is could somebody subscribe? I would love that so much. So
you'll have to give me the name on your YouTube channel, because what I can do with that is I can put that on my Facebook.
Okay.
And set it out and say, hey.
That's wonderful. Just, because I would like to have you back. I think you have a lot to share. I think your whole, all of it, your experience, like just, a lot. And it's like a lifetime of knowledge is what you have. Okay, so I think I'm going to hit it. So we're going to be kind of quiet during the music. And at the very end, when I'm like, okay, thank you very much, and I kind of end it, then I play another few seconds of music. But you should hear it. And if you don't hear it, it's going to be credits rolling.
All right. Because my neck hurts, I won't be looking there.
Yes. Okay.
Then the next question. Say my last name.
Passalacqua.
Thank you.
Is it Italian?
Yeah.
Oh, mi chiama Susanna.
Actually, he's Sicilian. But everyone's like, Passalacqua. And I'm like, okay, let's get it straight first before you introduce it. And this is Dr. Hack.
So were you surprised?
No, it was perfect.
I took Italian when I was in grade 12.
If you look at the name, it's phonetically. If you just look at it and pronounce it phonetically, it's just right where you need to be.
Which is Italian. Italian, you just pronounce everything and you're fine, So, okay, I'm going to start. Hello, this is Sue. Welcome to Fireside Chat. So happy to spend time with you. I'm very honored to have my guest, Dr. Chris Passalacqua, who has founded Discover Chiropractic in Troy, and he's helped me personally. And so I just wanted to shine a spotlight on his ability, his experience, and his knowledge. So welcome, Dr. Chris.
Welcome to be here.
Thank you ever so much. So Dr. Passalacqua is a 1985 graduate of Palmer Chiropractic in Iowa. He acknowledges the devastating effects of vertebral subluxations and destructive lifestyle choices on the wellness of the body, mind, and spirit. Dr. Passalacqua envisions a community of optimum wellness and vivid human potential. His goal is to eliminate mediocrity while promoting the reality of living a healthy and inspired lifestyle. He achieves this through perfecting his personal lifestyle choices, thus living by example while educating his patients. I had some major back spasms one morning going into work, and he made time for me and helped me that I was able to work all day. And because of his treatments, I slowly got better, but I wouldn't have turned that corner so quickly if it wasn't for your care, and you just immediately knew what to do. So welcome to Fireside Chat. I'm happy to spend time with you.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So tell us how you found this path.
Well, before we start, I want to make sure that everybody knows that our gracious host's birthday is tomorrow. So if you'd like to throw a couple of happy birthdays her way, that would be great. All right. How did he get started? I grew up in Warren, around the 13 and Hoover area. Mm-hmm. So I'm a proud patriot for Warren Cousino. Go Patriots. But there was a cranky old curmudgeon who lived across the street from us. And when his wife passed away, who was a darling, he kept on threatening to sell his house to the lowest of all life forms to make us miserable in all the neighborhood. Oh, no. And so a young couple moved in. And they were hippies. They drank a lot of beer and listened to this rock and roll and drove Harley Davidsons. And his brother had come home one summer, and he had said to me, have you ever heard of the term chiropractic, or what is a chiropractor? I mean, I'm 12 years old. I'm like, I don't know anything about a chiropractor.
Right.
Never even heard of them. And so he said, well, let me explain what chiropractic is. The brother did. And so he gave me a very quick kind of crash course on chiropractic philosophy. He would throw out philosophical terms like the power that made the body heals the body. All of healing happens from above down, inside out.
Wow.
We have something inside of our bodies called innate intelligence.
Right.
And so, he was using words that I thought were, boy, as a 12-year-old, I'm thinking, well, pass the Coors Light, let's go for a ride on the bike and explain more. And so he actually moved home from Iowa, and then his brother was doing nothing. And so he said, maybe I need to find a career in chiropractic. So in 8th grade, my neighbor said to my mom, can I put your son on a bus with me, and we're going to drive to Davenport, Iowa, and spend a week in Iowa visiting my brother. And my mom and dad said, yeah, sure, bring him to Iowa. And so I ended up going to Palmer College of Chiropractic as an 8th grade student.
Oh, my God.
And when I actually applied to chiropractic college, I lived in the same house, in the same room for the first 6 months.
That's crazy.
So, there's a term in Latin called vocare. And vocare, we translate it to what is our vocation? And a vocation is something that you're called to do.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I only through time and experience now have I realized that everything fell into place. I have been called to be a chiropractor and take care of some folks along the way.
I've heard of that innate. In fact, I know a chiropractor in Toronto, Ontario, and his license plate is like innate. And he definitely said the same term, like it's innate wisdom, innate knowing.
Right, inborn. So in chiropractic, we define chiropractic as a philosophy, a science, and an art of things natural, a system of adjusting the articulations of the spine for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. So each one of those actually carries a little bit of weight within the profession.
Right.
And so when we talk about the philosophy, we have an undergirding of why we do what we do. Philosophy asks and answers why of information. And so we know that there are 3 particular intelligences that run the body and that run the universe. One is called universal intelligence. Some might equate that to God, but there's something overarching. At one time, we weren't going to use the word God in politics, so we came up with an intelligence, a divine intelligence, an organized intelligence.
Right.
So that a rock has universal intelligence. It does nothing more than be a rock because that's the intelligence it's been given.
Right.
Anything that's living has an innate or inborn intelligence. A bumblebee, a lion, and a human have the same amount of innate intelligence because it's 100% to what system or living being it resides in. I can't make honey, but a bee can. Now, a bee can't do mathematics. I can.
But you can.
And so each living thing has an inborn or innate intelligence. And then the other one that we have is what we call educated intelligence. If I were to say to you, Susan, what's 2 plus 2? You would recite 4. And because you've learned these things along the way.
Right.
We have found in chiropractic that our educated intelligence is actually probably limited because I can only know so much. But my innate intelligence or this inborn wisdom knows how I can take a chicken sandwich. The chicken is dead. The bread is dead. The lettuce is dead. It's all dead. We chew it up. We swallow it. It goes through a whole digestive system.
Right.
We absorb, and then we get rid of the byproduct. It's a pretty cool system.
That's amazing.
I take in oxygen. I give off CO2. I drink water. I urinate, right? So it's just a system that runs the body.
Right.
And so what we say in chiropractic is the body doesn't necessarily need a lot of help, but it certainly doesn't need any interference. And so when we start looking at the way that people cause interferences within their health and their lifestyle, we begin to say that there are 3 things that people will do. They will chemically, they'll mechanically, or they'll emotionally cause an insult, trauma, or imbalance that overrides the body's ability to coordinate and adapt.
Okay, that's interesting. It overrides the body because the body knows what to do
Correct.
inherently. So it's kind of like you're putting something overlaying over that wisdom that maybe doesn't need to be there, like maybe a subluxation.
Correct. Here's the example I like to use. You and I go out for cocktails, right? Okay. Well, we have one cocktail. It's not that big of a deal. But then all of a sudden we're into 5 or 6 cocktails, right? And so we're going to get hungover, right? We're going to experience things that our body is not used to working with. And so it coordinates by saying, hey, you're going to go to the bathroom a little bit more, you're going to sleep a little harder, your nervous system's going to be irritated, your liver has to do these things to detox alcohol through your system. Well, everybody understands that. That one's pretty easy. But then when we start looking at the amount of consumption of sugar, coffee, alcohol, pop, processed foods, now we're chemically insulting our body. The use of prescription or recreational drugs
Wow.
is a way that we chemically override our body's ability to adapt.
Right.
That's the easy one. The easier one is you fall down, you get in a car accident, you lift something that's too heavy, you sleep the wrong way, some type of mechanical or movement insult. Those are pretty easy for people to grab a hold of.
Right.
Most people coming in, once we get down and we peel kind of layers away, they're stressed out. Stress causes a massive amount of physiology to change.
Okay.
And so we know from yesteryear in psychology that we're going to go through a fight or flight situation when we're stressed out, right?
Right.
I'm going to fight you to stay alive, or I'm going to run,
Right.
live to fight another day. Either one of those preps my body to learn how to survive.
Okay.
When I have too much stress in my life, what does it do to my physiology? Well, for some people, it causes anxiety. For some
Right.
people, it causes depression. For some people, it causes upset stomachs. For some people, it causes constipation and or diarrhea.
Okay.
For some people, it causes high blood pressure.
Right.
And so we're looking at things that what stress does to our system because it's going to be impossible to separate the mind from the body.
Right.
They work as a team. They are not individual.
Is it like a body-mind?
Absolutely. Everything that you see in a human being is going to be a mind-body connection. If I were to say, you're the most beautiful woman in the world, you would have a release of dopamine, you're going to have a release of serotonin, these feel-good brain chemicals,
Yeah.
your heart rate's going to go down,
Yeah.
all kinds of wonderful things. Blood pressure will go down.
Just
and
immediately. like-
Immediately. And now I'm going to tell you, you're the worst person to ever walk the planet. You release noradrenaline, norepinephrine. You're going to release chemistry that's going to say, hey, this dude's going to be a fight or flight man. I'm going to get into it with this rascal. And what your body does is it goes through these adaptations and coordinations in order to survive.
So if we're continually in a state of stress, that has a long-term effect.
It has not only a long-term effect, it has an immediate effect.
Okay.
To think of how fast something happens, a telephone call comes in, you've lost your job, your sister was killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
I mean, those are just things that, devastate people. And what happens is it is very normal to be depressed or elated based on the situation.
Right.
And so when people say, you got to get over this, what's the time frame? Are we going to start a clock or, turn a sand clock over?
Right.
I mean, everybody has the ability to heal. Our minds heal at different levels, just like our bodies do. And so the question is, what are we doing to promote the healing?
Okay.
Because we're upset now. So now you and I, we're going to go out and we're going to drink a lot.
Right.
You and I are
So we're
upset, so we're going to
stressed out.
we're going to smoke a lot. We're going to go to the doctor and we're going to get SSRIs because we don't want to face the reality of this may be a depressive state.
Wow.
So then all of a sudden you realize, all right, we're treating symptoms and we're not getting down to the fundamental underlying cause of things. There has been some type of trauma, insult, or imbalance
Right.
that the body is no longer able to handle.
Did you ever undergo a situation where you could feel changes in your body, and did you have to, in a sense, do a paradigm shift yourself?
Yeah. When I started doing some of my own research on things, when I started looking at what was the negative side of a chiropractic, like for example, I hear these are the four most common things I've heard in my 38 years of being a chiropractor.
Wow.
Chiropractors aren't real doctors. So when I hear that, the first question I have for the person who says it is, well, define a real doctor for me,
Okay, so define a real
right?
doctor.
And so they'll say, well, a medical doctor. I said, okay. So the osteopath is not a real doctor?
Yes,
The physiatrist is not a real doctor?
they are.
The doctor of physical therapy is not a real doctor? The podiatrist is not a real doctor?
And
The
they're all
chiropractor is not a
equally-
real doctor?
Yeah.
We're recognized by every government and state agency and educational agency in the United
world?
States.
In the United States.
In the
And
United States.
also in the world, is it pretty?
It's catching on. I think when I got into chiropractic, I graduated in 1985. The statistic was somewhere between 6 and 8% of the population, use chiropractic or have used chiropractic.
It's got to be a lot more.
I'm going to tell you maybe 10%. And I couldn't even back that up with any research. I'm giving it the 2% probably because I want to. I couldn't validate it in research.
Right.
So the second thing I hear is chiropractors don't believe in drugs. Well, on the way over here, I passed a Rite Aid. I passed a Walgreens.
Yes. CVS.
CVS.
Right.
We just came off of 4 years of weirdness where the only solving problem was for drugs. And so it's kind of hard. What I advise my patients and advise my friends and family when it comes down to use of drugs is very simple. Mm-hmm. Have you tried everything first in a natural way before you would use a medication? Have I ever advised my patients to use a medication? No, because I am not a pharmacist and I'm not going to practice pharmacy without a license.
Right.
So what I say to them is, if you were my sister, if you were my wife, if you were my grandma, and I qualify it and say this, be careful because these are some known side effects of the medication.
Okay.
I encourage my patients to do as much research on their own as possible.
Right.
Because when you do your own research, you become a little bit more educated.
That's
and
true.
then you're obviously, the more information you have, as my dad used to say, the better the decision you can make.
Your mom and dad would be so proud of you.
Well, maybe. The next one I hear constantly all the time is chiropractors think that they can correct anything. I have a confession for the audience that's listening. I have corrected nothing in my entire 38 years of taking care of people. Why do I say that? Because I don't do the healing. That's the business of the power that made the body heals the body up.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't create
That
healing
makes
inside
sense.
you. I can move bones that are out of position
Right.
and allow your body less nerve interference so that your body knows how to heal. If you were to burn yourself with a cigarette right now, in a period of time, you would say, hey, look, I have a blister. All right. Stimulus is the heat.
Right.
Reaction is the blister. In a period of time, what happens to the blister? It goes away.
I guess it heals.
Yeah, it heals. So putting ice on it is not going to heal it. Putting a Band-Aid on it is not going to heal it. Time is going to heal it, the power that's inside of a body. If I burn a dead person's body, nothing's going to happen. There's no life inside the body.
That's true.
So we have to keep the life force going, and that is really brain to tissue cell communication via the nervous system. And then the last one I hear that it really is, it's fantastic, is this. Once you start going to a chiropractor, you have to go forever. And my answer to that is only if you're really smart will you keep on doing that.
Okay.
How come? Because I have some very bad news for your listeners and you. Once you get a set of teeth, you're going to have to take care of them for how long?
Oh, gosh. Your
Forever.
whole life. Yeah.
Right? You get hair, you're going to have to take care of
Always.
it forever.
Yeah.
You have a relationship, a husband, wife, kids, you're going to have to take care of it forever. So
Totally.
it doesn't matter what it is. The more value set you put on something, the more you're going to want to take care of it. And so as a chiropractor, as a doctor, my value set is we're living in a sick society. And we're living in a sick society because of what you said in your intro.
I agree.
People make some decisions that are not good for the body. And then they come to the chiropractor as, quote unquote, a last resort. And we say, hey, you should have been here a little bit sooner because this is going to be a little bit easier to take care of when we get it right back into place at the very beginning. You hurt yourself in the morning.
Yes.
You were in my office within an hour, got
was.
an immediate an appointment, and we started working on you. By the end of the week, we had the problem solved. You may have gone through 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes of that before you would ever call the chiropractor, and then it takes a little bit longer. And so when they say, do you want to go forever? My answer is, how long do you want to eat well for?
Always.
How long do you want to take care of your body for?
You never stop.
How long do you want to look good for?
As long as you can.
How long do you want to keep learning things?
Always.
Then
Yeah.
you work on it.
Right.
And so what some people also say is this. When I got adjusted, I felt really good. And when they make the commitment to say, I'm going to come by on a regular basis, make sure I'm checked, what I say to them is, fantastic. Why would you give up what you've earned?
Because it's like you're taking baby steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like reverse course and like undo all that good.
Correct.
So could you tell me, like I kind of had like a spasm or something like that. Could you tell me kind of like how could something of that have happened? Because in my mind, I'm like reaching for putting a cup in a cup holder. And that's what brought it on. I was just reaching across like my seat and there's like the cup holder. And it was just the most horrible. I don't think I've ever experienced a spasm like that because you can't breathe. It's so
Right.
so intense.
So let's go back to some very basic stuff. If you come in the office, we do our testing on you. In my particular office, some offices may use something different, but we use what we call a heat reading instrument called a dermathermograph. It picks up temperature changes because where nerve irritation takes place, inflammation takes place.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of infrared equipment that picks that up. We use X-ray, and then we use some very simple established orthopedic chiropractic testing.
Okay.
And so we use those three metrics as a means of finding out, do you have a spinal misalignment?
Okay.
We establish the fact that a spinal misalignment is taking place. There are 5 known consequences in the literature that shows what's going wrong when a misalignment takes place.
Okay.
Just for the heck of it, so you can impress your friends at a cocktail party, one of them is called spinokinesiopathology.
Okay.
It's an $11 college word that means this. There's going to be abnormal and uncomfortable positions, loss of normal posturing.
Right.
You could have pain with that. But once the bones move out of place, it has the ability to irritate a peripheral nerve.
Right.
And once it irritates the peripheral nerve, we call that neuropathophysiology, you can have altered brain function. You can have a decrease in transmission of energy or information over the nerve going from the brain to the tissue cell.
That area.
Right? You can have numbness, tingling, cold sensations, hot sensations.
Okay.
If I tickle you, that's a nerve irritation.
Yes.
If you're like, man, my skin is itchy, that is a typical nerve irritation. There's some type of chemistry that is happening that would cause a nerve irritation. That's where your problems start. On the other side of the bones being knocked out of place, loss of normal posture, the nerves are being irritated, you have a myopathophysiology, a muscle problem begins to settle in.
Yeah.
You experience spasms. Other patients will come in and experience flaccid muscles, weak muscles, lack of tone within the muscle, where the muscle just doesn't function like it should because there's no nerve supply that keeps it going in the right direction.
Okay.
And that can cause abnormal movements also, and it can cause pain. Muscles cause pain.
Yeah.
Once the bones move out of position, the nerves are irritated, the muscles become problematic. Now we have something called histopathophysiology.
Histo is tissue.
His tissue, and it is hot spots and inflammation.
Because heat.
Correct. The more inflammation you have in your system, the more detriment you're causing. If I were to break a bone, Suzanne, and it heals, that hard tissue, that bony tissue, will heal actually stronger than original tissue.
Okay.
When you have inflammation of tissue and it heals with scar tissue. It's never as elastic nor as resilient as healthy tissue.
Right.
So people who, I want one adjustment and I want everything to go away. You have some underlying tissue damage and inflammation that just simply does not allow you physiologically to receive one adjustment, one PT session, one anti-inflammatory that's going to take care of everything.
Right.
You go through the process of getting sick, you must go through the process of getting well.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes it's a progression.
Correct. You can get even worse. For example, if you've ever cut your leg shaving, well, you'll know where the scar is on your leg, around your ankle or behind your knee where it's, kind of weird to shave, and you have a little scar. I have scars on my face. I have probably 20 scars on my head.
Oh, gosh.
I've had shoulder surgery. There's scars.
Oh,
So
God.
that tissue is never as elastic nor as resilient. And if it's not corrected, you have the proclivity to hurt that tissue again and again because it's not healed up.
My God.
So people will come in and say, I'll say to them, this is the 4th time you're coming in, Suzanne, for the same problem. We need to work towards fixing this problem. And it's usually, everybody decides when it's time to fix their problem. We're there to coach you.
Yeah.
We're going to love you and serve you if you come in one time or you come in 100 times.
Right.
We're there to take care of you. And then the last thing is this. The bones move out of place. The nerves are irritated.
Right.
The muscles respond. Inflammation starts going cuckoo. And then you have what we call pathophysiology, which is an overall lack of wholeness or wellness, and what we in chiropractic called dis-ease. You're no longer at ease.
At ease.
And so what begins to happen is accelerated aging like arthritis, accelerated aging like degeneration within tissues and cells, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. And so those things begin to add up where we don't see the body working well. So when you come in and say to me, I threw my back out, well, now your body says, how do we stabilize this? Let's lock it down. Let's not move it. Because if you move, starts hurting
Yes.
because of the inflammation and the nerve irritation. So our innate intelligence says, lock it down. And so what we do in chiropractic is say, okay, let's find out what's locking it down. And it's usually, again, the abnormal position of the bone and then an abnormal posture, which means the curves of the spine are not where they need to be.
Wow. So do you ever help like athletes and because people
We actually see a ton of athletes.
because they're
Yeah.
always hurting themselves.
They're always hurting
you know?
themselves. You're looking at the one who hurt themselves more than anybody I know. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we take care of a lot of people.
It's good though because you're really beautifully situated. I think that your location is so central. Like it's just really easy to get to. There's always parking.
Yeah.
And we have like nice food places around us too.
You know, the funny thing is when I had graduated, I graduated in 1985, started practicing immediately.
Wow.
And a guy from Peoria, Illinois called me. He was part of a spinal rehabilitation group. And he was a great chiropractor, but he was a lousy human being. And after around 9 months, I said, I look
Didn't
at
wanna
your,
work with
yeah,
them?
I don't want to be around this anymore.
Right.
And so he said, that's fine. And so I split for home.
Okay.
I came back and I opened up a small practice in Sterling Heights. And then I started getting busier than the guy whose practice I was in.
Wow.
And he said, you need to find your own place. You don't need to stick around here.
Oh my God.
So I talked to my mom and my stepmom and dad, and they owned at that time Sarah's Cake Supply in
Oh,
the
the
plaza,
cake-
right?
That's
and so
perfect.
Sarah said, there is a building that's open right next to us. Why don't you call the landlord and see if that building is still open? And so I called, and he said, yeah, we will set you up, and hey, if your son of Ben and Sarah, we'll make it a great deal for you.
Oh,
And so
my
I opened up my
goodness.
practice in early 1988 at that location.
Wow. Isn't it a great location?
It's a fantastic location. I can't think of a better location in the city because we're still in the heart of Troy.
Yes.
To the east of us is Sterling Heights.
Right.
To the north of us is Rochester Hills.
Rochester, yeah.
And then if we go 5 or 6 miles to the west, we're in Birmingham. So we have patients come from all those
Right.
same areas.
Right.
We have patients come from Clawson. We have patients that come from Madison Heights, Warren, St. Clair Shores,
Oh my
East
goodness.
Point, Grosse Point. Word gets out and you want to go somewhere where, kind of
Where
like
the
Cheers,
person-
everybody knows your name, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody knows your
Yeah,
spine.
it's nice because it's trust that you've built. Do you are you great? You must be grateful for the trust.
That's earned. That's not given.
Right.
And when I
Exactly.
started mentoring under a friend of mine from South Africa, a guy by the name of Dr. Fred Schofield out in Phoenix, Arizona, he said, if you take care of every patient as if they were your family, every patient is your kid, is your brother, is your sister, is your aunt, is your uncle, is your grandma, is your mom and dad, is your wife.
Wow.
You'll never go wrong because you'll never want to hurt or do anything wrong to your family. And so we,
That's true.
from the very beginning, we treat every customer that comes in and every patient that comes in
Right.
as if you were my family. Now, somebody may be watching that says, yeah, I'm a patient. He roughs me up. I rough up my brother. I tickled my kids, right? I roughed up my mom.
It's kind of a compliment because
Yeah.
they've earned that closeness.
If we're harassing you, we're loving on you. And so you can't be in practice for 38 years and
Oh, gosh.
not sustain that if the trust in the community has not been built.
It's incredible. Yeah. So do you have a story about like someone that maybe presented a difficult kind of case and maybe one that kind of you had to really think about or something that was kind of maybe not clear that you had to work through?
There are several cases that stand out, and the idea this would go back to the original when we talked about, chiropractors think that they can cure everything. Again, I haven't cured anybody,
Right.
but there are 3 cases that stand out to me. I won't use their name, obviously, for HIPAA.
absolutely.
One of them has passed away. One of them does not live here anymore, and
Okay.
one of them is no longer a patient of mine.
Okay.
The one that does not live here anymore, I was adjusting her. She had headaches coming in.
Okay.
And I started taking care of her. And she told me that she was scheduled at the end of the month to
Right.
get her glaucoma corrected, to have eye surgery.
That's
and
scary.
I said, yeah, that's kind of crazy, huh? And she said, yeah. She goes, you think chiropractic care can help with that? And I said, I have no idea. I said, but I know this. If we clear your nervous system, the body has its best ability to probably knock that glaucoma out. And when she went there, in 2 weeks, the doctor had done an eye pressure test and said, I can't find anything to do the surgery on.
You've got to be kidding.
And
That's
so I said to her,
incredible.
okay, wait 6 months,
Right.
go back again and find out if it's come back. And she did. And to this very day, she's never had another glaucomic problem.
Is that's like one of the scariest things in the world is glaucoma, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you don't want the pressure in your eye. It creates all kinds of problems.
It's terrifying.
There's
Yeah.
another headache case that came in, a young, beautiful gal, 14 years old. She had missed 90% of her 8th grade year because of incapacitating headaches.
Wow.
And the classic I heard from her, as I've heard from, hundreds of people over the years, is this: you're my last chance. And I always say, I should have been your first choice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll take the last
Isn't
chance.
it funny? Yeah.
She
that's
had been
funny.
on 20 different medications.
Right.
She was in studies at U of M to take care of her headaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her, I said, in order for me to take care of you, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to follow my instructions for at least 2 months to the T
Okay.
and see what we can do.
She had nothing to lose, though, right?
Nothing to lose. At the end of 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
she was down to one medication. She had dropped out of the study because she no longer wanted to drive to U of M. Her parents didn't want to drive her because the problem was corrected.
Wow.
And that was probably close to 25 years ago. I saw her mom recently. She came in and got adjusted. And I said, hey, how is Danielle doing? She said, hasn't had a headache since.
Oh, my God.
And so those kind of cases are kind of cool.
That's
Again,
nice.
it's just me finding the underlying problem and working towards correcting it and
Right.
letting the body heal up on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is I was with my family on
Extraordinary.
Mackinac Island, and a lady comes screaming at me, Dr. Christopher, you got me pregnant. And of course, I'm looking, and my kids are looking, Daddy? And of course, my wife dropped her purse, put her hands on her hips, and she said, Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Splaining to do.
All right. So this gal had come in with a chief complaint of infertility.
Okay.
And her pelvis and her sacrum were rotated to a
Oh.
large degree where fertility was not
Interesting.
taking place. And so we took care of her first 2 vertebrae,
Right.
atlas and axis, and we took care of her pelvis.
here.
Yep, very on the hairline. And we took care of her pelvis and her sacrum. And within 4 months, she had conceived.
That's unbelievable. Isn't
She
it?
has a family of 3.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's just the most amazing feeling, isn't it?
And the craziest one, and someone's going to take this the wrong way, and it's okay, but I don't think you're going to take it.
Yeah.
A lady came in, she had a diagnosable terminal disease.
Oh, my goodness.
And she came in a wheelchair, a walker, and it progressed to a wheelchair. And I remember saying to her, getting her on the table, she was miserable. But when she would be adjusted, she would say she had about 24 hours, 36 hours of kind of feeling human again. And as she got worse, and there was nothing that anybody was going to do, I remember saying to her, why are you afraid to die? You're holding on. What are you gripping so hard
Right.
that you need to let go? And I remember
Great
her
question.
husband brought her in, and we talked about her spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about her relationship with God.
That's lovely.
It was crazy because 2 days later, she passed away.
Wow.
And she had gone home that night and written a letter that I still have.
Oh, that's
And she said, I want to thank you for making it easier to move from one plane to the next.
unbelievable.
And I would find it to be complimentary if you would come to my funeral and would read
That's beautiful.
whatever you say, the eulogy at the funeral. And
That's very touching. Like, you must have been amazed. You
I
didn't expect
was
any of
so young and so immature. I was probably 30 years old, and I didn't know the gravity of it. But of course, as you get older, you begin to realize some of those things.
Yes.
I've had 3 kids, named after me, whose parents are coming in, and they've
isn't
named their
that
and I say to them, "Don't do
amazing?"
that. That poor kid's going to get beat up on the playground. Don't do that."
Topher.
Right, of course. Hey, let's go kick Topher. So there's been some of these weird cases that have come along, hundreds of, if not thousands of headaches,
Wow.
high blood pressure, constipation, diarrhea.
Mm-hmm.
We specialize, if anything, in family practice.
Okay.
So parents bring their kids sore throats, ear infections, allergies, asthma, bedwetting. These are all the common things that a chiropractor should be seeing in their office because they're educating their patients on the fact that The nerves, 31 nerves, pair of spinal nerves that leave the spine,
Right.
go on to give rise to every organ, every system, and every function. There isn't anything that you've expressed or will express or haven't expressed that isn't first processed through the nervous system. So if we were to look at a nerve that exits out of your spine,
Yeah.
that peripheral nerve can be divided into 3 particular branches. So
Okay.
each nerve carries what we call a motor portion, which causes you to move.
Right.
So if you see me moving my hands,
Yeah.
the nerves have to tell my hands and shoulders what to do. Well, the same nerves cause your heart to beat,
Okay.
and the same nerves tell your kidneys to filter, and your same nerves tell a woman to have a period. The same nerves tell your toenails to grow. And so any type of movement in the body can be altered as a result of irritation. Another part of the peripheral nerve is what we call the autonomic or trophic part of it.
Okay.
That causes our organs to function. That causes heat to go in and out of our systems. That
Okay.
causes inflammation to come in when it should and inflammation to go out when it has to. It causes you to go to sleep and have the rhythms of sleep be put into you.
So, and that's autonomic because you're not controlling it.
Right. The nervous system can be divided into 2 paths. The central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, and then your peripheral nervous system, which is the peripheral nerves, and that is divided into parasympathetic, which calms you down,
Right.
and sympathetic, which ramps you up.
Okay.
Okay? Then the third part of that nerve is the sensory part. The sensory part allows you to feel something.
Right.
So if I put an ice cube on your hand, you'd say, oh, that's cold.
Yeah.
That's because you have specialized nerve endings called temporeceptors that tell you what temperature things
Temperature,
are.
yeah, right.
And so
That's
you
so
have all
interesting.
kinds of specialized nerve endings that tell your body what's going on. The ultimate function of the nervous system is get you to survive and thrive
Yes.
this given moment.
Right.
It doesn't care about what you were doing yesterday.
No.
It cares about what you're doing right
Right
now.
now.
It uses the experiences of our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there's no expiration date on our memories or experiences,
No.
but the body knows how to use that to its benefit. And so here's what you say. Don't touch the hot stove.
Mm-hmm.
Until you touch the hot stove, you may not have given it. Don't drink that. You may not understand until someone says, you shouldn't have drank that. Don't start smoking. It really hooks people fast. Don't start smoking. And then what happens is our nervous system is always in the state of adaptation and coordination because these bodies that we have, these physical bodies
Right.
that also control our mind,
Mm-hmm.
it's the only one we get.
Yeah.
We don't get any more.
That's it. Yeah.
And this
True.
is the environment that we have. Now, you and I are in a recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to be sharing an environment.
Right.
What if you thought it was too hot in here, but I thought it was too cold in here? That's our bodies adapting to the same stimulus
Right.
in a different way.
Right.
So both of us are adapting and coordinating to our environments.
Right now.
How can someone smoke a pack of cigarettes every day for 50 years and never have a lung problem?
Is
They-
the body adapting?
They adapted and coordinated to the benefit of their system
Okay.
differently than someone who smokes 4 cigarettes a day and develops emphysema.
So, and do you think there's like
By the way, let me tell your audience, I'm not encouraging you to smoke a pack of cigarettes. Quite the
Definitely
opposite.
Not, definitely not. No. Did you? Because do you have like supplements in your office?
Yeah, we do. We recommend supplements
Mm-hmm.
because we actually acknowledge the fact that the American diet is what we call SAD, the standard American diet, which is sad.
Sad.
And so when we start looking at food pyramids, they're antiquated.
Yeah.
They were put together by farmers and dairy people. And if you look, the most amount of thing are consumed dairy,
Dairy,
and,
yes, you're right.
and grains. And so I always tell people when it comes down to dieting, the research is out on it. You don't need to do more, but if you'd like to, the Mediterranean diet is the overall most, quote unquote, sustainable diet.
Okay.
You always want your diet to be sustainable.
True.
These people go on the paleo diet, which I'm good with. People go on a zone diet. People go on a ketogenic diet.
Keto, yeah.
All of those are good for a season, but what is the sustainability of it? You
Right.
shouldn't be in a state of ketogenesis for a long time because your body needs to go back and absorb some other things that are going on.
Okay.
Can there be an advantage to a ketogenic diet? Absolutely. I've recommended a ketogenic diet to at least 100 people, if not more, for a season.
Right.
Then I want them back on the Mediterranean. So if you were to come into me and say, hey, I see some vitamins there, what are they for?
Right.
They are supplements, and supplement means to go along with, not replace.
Okay.
I never recommend anybody take a nutritional supplement, or what the new word is, nutraceutical, in place of eating.
Right.
And so we have a multiple, we have a C,
Okay.
we have a fish oil, we have a D with K for people over 40,
Okay.
and we have probiotics. Those are things that I take.
Right.
I've done my research. I know what they provide me.
Okay.
And so I want my patients to have access to it.
That's
We
awesome.
don't push it on anybody.
Right. You really don't.
Usually what we say to them is, let's take a look at your diet and see what you can start doing on your own without purchasing anything extra except what you're buying at the grocery store. And then when they want a little bit more, let's give them a little bit more and give them a high-quality product from Metagenics that is reasonably priced. I don't want anybody going broke in my office.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a big drain on the finances. And so we always make sure our prices are in line, usually a little bit lower than everybody else,
Right.
because we want people to have access to the clinic.
You're busy, aren't you? I see people all day long, every day.
We're a busy we're a busy
Yeah,
practice.
you really are.
At one
Yeah,
time,
wow.
at
It's a
one time,
compliment.
yeah, we were
It's a
seeing over
compliment.
800 patients a
Oh,
week,
my.
and that was
Are
just
you serious?
yeah, by myself, and that was just crazy. So we've calmed down a little bit. I'm getting older. I'm 61 years old. I can't handle that anymore. My
That's
hands are starting to get tired
incredible.
at the end of the day. I want to go
right?
home,
I
talk to
mean,
mama.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You deserve vacations and time off. And do you think you have balance? Because that sounds unbelievably hard. Like, is it a little easier now? Like, can you?
I learned balance the hard way, right? Yeah, how do you learn? Well, there's an easy way and a hard way.
Yes.
I'm the guy who learns the hard way, right? The harder the better. There was a time when I was seeing all those patients, and some people within the profession started asking me to teach and started asking me to speak
Right.
around the nation,
Right.
teaching seminars on how to see that many people. What did I teach my patients that they would be referring others in? What was my financial structure so that people could afford it?
Right.
And so I would be going out to New York. I would be going out to Arizona. The state had hired me to teach for our state association.
My God.
And so I'm trying to balance all of these things with traveling on a weekend when I would see patients on Friday till 6, leave my clinic, be on a plane at 7 o'clock, get to New York, get home at 7 o'clock on Sunday, and have 200 people scheduled on Monday morning.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it burned me out.
Yes.
And so I had to learn the hard way of there's just things I'm going to have to say no to.
Right.
And my wife makes fun of me because she says, you say no to nobody. And so now I went back a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, and they were offering the opportunity to get a doctorate in chiropractic philosophy.
Okay.
And I love the philosophy part of my profession more than any other part.
Wow.
The science is science, no matter who has it, right?
True.
If a bone is out of place, it causes pressure on a nerve. A podiatrist owns that. A physiologist owns that.
Right.
The medical community owns that. So the science is what it is. Is
Right.
there particular chiropractic science? No, because
It's
we
the
deal with the
body.
human system of anatomy and physiology.
Right.
But our philosophy is what really separates us out. So I went back and I had a chance to do some postgraduate work, and I went back and I got a second doctorate in philosophy.
Oh my God.
And then word got out. So then I've been asked to teach. And so,
Sure.
I've written
yeah.
some papers and I wrote my thesis, and I've had to defend my thesis, and I've written abstracts that I've had to go around and defend that. And now I'm part of a group called the Center for Chiropractic Progress.
Okay.
And we teach chiropractors how to look and appreciate our philosophy and how our philosophy applies to the everyday warp and woof of our practice. Why do we do what we do?
Right.
If it's to crack a back and collect a paycheck from Blue Cross, I'm not that interested in spending time with you.
No.
I want to know what is it that we do as a profession
Right.
that is not only non-duplicating and inimitable, but it benefits it that nobody else is doing.
Right.
Nobody else can apply a specific adjustment to a vertebrae that has a specific misalignment. It's not a manipulation. That brings a joint through a range of motion to increase movement and increase circulation, as founded by its father, Andrew T. Still, in the late 1800s.
Wow.
Chiropractic was developed by D.D. Palmer, 1895, by the correction of a misalignment in the second vertebrae that caused a janitor in Davenport, Iowa, to lose his hearing.
Oh my
And so he adjusted the janitor 3 days in a row, and on the third day, his hearing was restored.
That's unbelievable.
And he said, I may be onto something here.
Yes.
When he reasoned, if things are out of alignment,
maybe we can move them
we
in the
can move-
direction.
Absolutely. And then he started listing cases. None of his first cases at all within the first years of chiropractic had anything to do with neck pain or back pain. It had to do with blood problems. It had to do with typhoid. It had to do with intestinal difficulties. And they were starting to get really crazy, great results with that. And hence, he formed a profession called the chiropractic profession. And chiropractic is Greek for chiro, is hands.
Okay.
Practic means to practice with your hands. So it's a profession of with
Wow.
our hands.
So the Palmer chiropractic, like it's that Palmer, that
That
same
is,
person?
it is that Palmer. It is probably
that's-
the most respected chiropractic institution in the world.
So that's an honor.
I'm very happy to say that I am a Palmer grad.
Absolutely.
There will be people that come in today still to me. They're older. They're my age, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Okay, I sure am glad you're a Palmer grad. Those Palmer boys know how to move bones. And I'm like, oh, honey, there's other chiropractors out there. I mean, there's two kinds of chiropractors: Palmer grads and everyone that wishes they were Palmer. I understand that, but with that aside, it was it's called the fountainhead of chiropractic.
Okay.
Palmer is to chiropractic what Sterling is to silver. Is the thing that we have in
Wow.
chiropractic. Yep.
Do you think the progression, like the profession, is kind of gaining, interest? And are there new people who are going into the chiropractic profession? Like, do you think the profession is continuing on its, ever expanding journey?
There's Susan, you're asking me a question that unfortunately plagues my mind a lot because when I talk to young chiropractors, people who want to get into chiropractic,
Yeah.
there are those that get into a profession because they want to make money doing that profession. I have no problem with people making money doing their profession.
Right.
If you're doing it in a crony way, that you're providing unnecessary services to people, I'm against that in any profession.
Right.
I don't care if it's my profession or not.
Yeah, I don't see you ever like, oh, let's do this for Blue Cross so that they'll
Correct.
give us no, I don't
Correct.
see that at all.
I do take care of medical doctors. And when I talk to them about the chiropractic profession,
Yeah.
and I say, what's the problem with the chiropractic profession on your side of the fence? And they all say the same thing. Number one, condemnation before investigation. We really don't know what you do.
My goodness.
And then another thing is you take money away from us. If someone comes to see you for high blood pressure, they're not going to see me.
Oh,
And if they see you for constipation,
they're not going to see their doctor.
they're not going to go to the internist.
Interesting.
Recently, I have an eye surgeon who comes to see me,
Wow.
and he referred a friend of his in who is a pharmacologist, and she owns her own drug-producing company. And she said to me, I don't know why I'm here. She said, we seem like we're on opposite sides of the fence when it comes to healthcare. And I said, I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. You follow my recommendations to the T for 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to move better. Your intestines are going to function better. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I have IBS. I said, okay, your intestines are going to function better.
Yeah, you must have.
You're going to
known that
have
somewhere.
more energy and you're going to sleep better.
Wow.
Monday was her 6th week. She came in and told me, I'm off of all my medications.
Oh my God.
I have no more IBS. I'm sleeping 8 hours a night, and I'm moving better than I have in 20 years. And she is 55 years old.
In 6 weeks.
In 6 weeks.
And all of those systems, they're all like differing symptoms. Like it isn't just one area. It's not just like, intestinal. Like it's
Correct.
sleep and it's a lot of different. So like the nerves are everywhere.
Everywhere. Remember, every organ, every system, every function is controlled by those nerves. Here's my question. Is healing a function? Absolutely. Healing happens in the brain before it happens anywhere else.
Okay.
That's why there was a sanitarium called Clearview Sanitarium in Davenport, Iowa in the early 1900s, where the judge would say to people who have been deemed mentally ill, they would go to Clearview Sanitarium, they would receive specific chiropractic adjustments. They they would receive specific nutrition.
Okay.
They would receive exercise on a daily basis, getting out in the sunlight,
Fresh air.
right?
Yeah.
Everything. And it had an incredibly high success rate. And so I have patients who come in who have been depressed, who have been anxious, who suffer with, some form of mental illness. And when they start following some simple ideas, what in chiropractic we call the dream sequence, they start getting better. They start getting better. What most people don't know is that when you are on an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin uptake inhibitor, you are going to change some architecture in your brain that
Okay.
drives you to consume processed foods.
What?
Guess what processed foods do to your brain?
God, I don't know.
Not good.
Lessen the functioning?
Yeah, absolutely. And so why would we want to give people medications that block their view of reality? Now, I know some people are going to watch the show and say, oh, there he goes. He's practicing psychiatry without a license.
No.
No. Remember, we said there are 3 ways that people become ill: chemical, mechanical, and emotional insults, traumas, and imbalances. So when people come in when they're stressed out, people come in, they can be depressed, anxious. I've dealt with ADD. I've dealt with autistic kids. Those are all the things that we see in our practice because it is a GP. It is a general family practice, and people come in. I've had lots of patients get off of their psych meds because they start adapting and start adopting healthier lifestyles that they say, hey, this is actually working, and I don't feel so zombie-like.
Right.
So when you said,
That's amazing.
I envision a community of vivid potential, how vivid can you be when you're on mind-altering drugs?
Yeah.
I mean, the passing of the laws to legalize marijuana so we can have kids have mind-altering drugs that shy away from reality? And so I'm not a big drug guy. If drugs are needed, man, am I glad they're there.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm so happy that they're there.
Like if you have surgery, you're going to have pain after.
Absolutely. I had shoulder surgery. I blew my shoulder out 5 years ago.
How did that affect your practice, though? Don't you
Well,
have
at that
to
time, I had a
constantly-
fellow working with me, and he
Okay.
helped me manage the practice at that particular time. But I remember when the pain medication wore off that was in my body, I said to my wife, you got to get up right now and you got to get me a pain medication. I have never experienced this kind of pain.
Oh, my
I was glad for
God.
that.
Yes.
But when I start looking at the amount of fentanyl coming in, when I look at people who are hopped up on, OxyContin, if I look at the nefariousness of the Sackler family in the pushing of OxyContin on our nation,
Right.
I mean, we're looking at a drug addlation. I don't think healthy people need to be on handfuls of drugs.
Completely. Yeah.
And so when there's natural things to do, why don't we exhaust those natural things first
Right.
before we introduce something like a chemical into the system?
Especially if it's addictive or something like that.
Most drugs are addictive. I do some community service work at Grace Centers of Hope in Pontiac that deals with
awesome.
homelessness and drug and alcohol addiction.
Wow.
And when I do there and I do the counseling and I talk to the folks over there, a lot of them will tell me they had a harder time getting off of their prescription medication than all of their medication. I'm sorry about that. Illegal drugs that they were using.
Oh, my goodness.
Because what most people don't want to accept is that drugs are drugs pushed or prescribed. They fall under the classification of drugs. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Please don't shoot the messenger.
No, of course not.
Right?
Of course not.
But
No.
if we're looking and we're dealing with hardcore reality,
Drugs are drugs.
drugs are drugs, pushed or prescribed. Right? We have medication drugs. We have mood-altering drugs.
Yeah.
Every bit of it is physiologically altering drugs. And then we have street drugs.
So how does chiropractic affect sleep? Is it because brain? Like where's the...
When we go to sleep at night, what
Yeah.
we do is we want our brains to shut down.
Yes.
But we want the brains to shut down in the way that we're processing information. For example, why don't you pee your pants at night? Because your brain is still working saying, hey, we're going to hold the urine in the bladder. You're not going to pee. So it's not that our brains shut off.
Right.
It's that we don't have to necessarily solve physics problems in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to deadlift a weight in the middle of the night.
No.
We don't have to argue with our spouses in the middle of the night.
Right.
So what happens is our brains begin to shut down at a certain level, and certain physiology is hampered or dampened at that point.
Okay.
But what most people don't realize is there is a cascade of all kinds of endocrine problems and solutions that are happening within the brain.
Okay.
And so only when you are in deep sleep does your body release chemistry within the brain to cleanse the brain of what we call amyloid plaques.
Okay.
And so sleep causes that plaquing to be removed. And so there's a rejuvenation.
Right.
You restore your energy. Energy, remember, can't be created nor destroyed.
Right.
It simply changes form. So we go from a fatigue form of energy
Right.
into a rejuvenation and a refreshment. So when I tell
those words.
parents, a newborn, don't be surprised if your newborn is sleeping anywhere between 12 and 15 hours. There's all kinds of physiology that is happening because the body is going through sleep. Sleep is a must. At 61, I need to be getting at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night.
Wow, do you?
I try to get to 8 to 9 hours a night.
Incredible.
But my beautiful German Shepherd dog only will sleep so long, and then she'll say, "Get up, Dad." I know some moms are going to really like this, and some dads are really going to like this, but teenagers are not. They need to be getting, anywhere between 10 and 12 hours of sleep a night because of how much physiology is actually happening in their systems.
I bet they're not because they're interested in the ding on their phone at 2 a.m.
Absolutely. If your audience wants to go, there's a guy by the name of Dr. Walker who has done some very deep research into what happens, Why We Sleep is the name of the book, Why We Dream and Why We Sleep.
Okay.
It's well worth getting into. When you're done reading it, you can put it in front of your door as a doorstop. There is a smaller version to it. But it's an easy read that starts getting you to understand sleep not only is essential,
Right.
it is necessary to the point where if you don't get sleep, you compromise the overall function of your immune system. You compromise your joints because the joints are tired and they want to start locking down.
Oh.
Your intestines don't want to do the right thing because you go into a state of what we call dysphonesis, an error in the way your body expends energy. So we want to clear that physiology out by getting sleep.
Kind of like a reset.
Absolutely. No blue light with phones and computers and tablets an hour before you go to bed.
Right.
No of those same an hour after you get up. Let your brain process. The blue light stimulates the brain to hyper stimulate it, not calm you down. That's why people who sleep with their phone, they have a hard time falling asleep because their brain is constantly being stimulated.
You know those apps like Calm or whatnot, where it's just a voice and say a black screen somehow? Is that a nice way to drift in?
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction.
So if I hear that, my brain has to be taking it in. There's what they call nighttime sounds. You can hear birds chirping, wind blowing through trees, little creeks, babbling brooks. All of that is, I'm sure, okay for you to fall asleep. What it's doing is it's causing a distraction in your mind.
Right.
And so your mind takes it as something that's calming. Nobody falls asleep with people cheering. Nobody goes to sleep with acid rock on their phone.
No.
Everything is always calming because the nervous system understands what a calming sound is, and it utilizes it to its advantage.
What was that dream?
Oh, the dream sequence, right. So really it's an acrostic, right? Dream, D-R-E-A-M. So if someone were to say to me, okay, give me the secret to staying as healthy as I can, give me the secret to repairing my body, what should I be doing? Dream sequence is that. So D stands for diet. We are what we eat. And so if I were to say to you, Susan, you're like a Maserati. Are you going to put the cheapest low-grade gasoline in a Maserati engine? No, you want to put things that are going to be good.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's where the Mediterranean diet, again, a sustainable diet that has a large metric of food so you can get different quantities and qualities. It's not eliminating anything too much, but it's not introducing too much.
Right.
My dad was Sicilian, as I told you before. When we would have pasta, we wouldn't have like a pound of pasta. It was a simple side dish. Because that's how he grew up.
Portions.
It wasn't a whole thing. Yeah, portions. And so we want to make sure that the diet is right. The big push right now in a lot of healthcare fields is inflammation.
Yes.
And so there are what we call pro-inflammatory diets, and there are low-inflammatory diets.
Okay.
And so that's where Paleolithic or ketogenic would come in because those are low inflammatory diets.
Okay.
As far as a reasonable diet, again, Mediterranean diet always scores high. Every tissue and cell you have in your body is regenerated and reproduced because of the foods that you put in.
Okay.
And without going down to a cellular level, processed foods really damage the cell membranes. And so good things can't get in,
Right.
and unfortunately bad things can't get out.
Interesting.
And so diet makes a difference right down to a cellular level, even something called the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, by the foods you eat. So D stands for diet.
Diet. Okay.
R stands for rest.
Okay.
Everything with rest has to do with not only resting with maybe like a nap, taking a vacation, taking it easy, disassociating yourself from something, but sleep is absolutely essential.
Yes.
I can only make a muscle so many times, and then I'm going to have to rest
Yes.
and go through a refractory period, and then I can use that arm again. And so the rest becomes important because, again, it's a rejuvenation. You can only do so much, and then you're going to have to sleep it off. E stands for exercise. I'll start the sentence, you end it. If you don't use it, you
lose it.
Right. So every tissue and cell in our body vibrates. Every tissue and cell of our body moves.
Okay.
And so by looking at what the research has produced, we know that mild to moderate exercise is great for the system, not only in every physiology, but in pretty much every pathology.
Wow.
For example, what does exercise do to the immune system? Well, it actually bolsters it. What does too much exercise do to the immune system? Shuts it down.
Okay.
What does exercise do to prevent Alzheimer's? Keeps your inflammation rate low, keeps your sugar level low, less likelihood to get Alzheimer's.
So important.
Everything. You can't name something that exercise is not going to help. Osteoporosis, exercise. And that means a young girl between the ages of 12 and 20 have their best opportunity to prevent osteoporosis by the foods and the exercises that they're using at that particular time.
So young.
But what do we see 12 to 18-year-olds eat? Processed foods, junk foods. Who's got time to exercise?
Yeah.
Right? I can eat like a horse and never gain any weight.
Right.
Right? Because they're caught. And so we have to keep educating. So exercise is important. High blood pressure can be controlled with exercise. There are numerous studies that show that people who exercise do far better with mental illness than those that don't, even so much so that some people are getting off of their psychotropics because there's all kinds of chemistry changes that happen within the coconut because you're exercising.
Incredible.
A stands for your attitude of stress. What is your stress level? Stress, remember we said before at the beginning of your broadcast, we go into a fight or flight situation.
Yes.
So the way that we handle stress, the way that we negotiate with it, the way that we, embrace it.
Like that. Yeah.
Right? You got to say no. I can't say no to anybody. You have to start saying no to somebody. And so the stresses that we have, the normal woof of the fabric of our lives is stressful. I'm married. I understand that I have a relationship with my wife, and it can be stressful. I'm happy to say I'm a grandfather. So now I have the stress of being a grandpa. I'm a father-in-law. Those are new stresses.
Yes.
I'm a mentor to some young men in the profession.
That's
so
wonderful.
there are stresses. I'm an elder at my church. So there are stresses where people come to me and they want to know, certain things. So you have to learn how to balance that stress out.
Right.
Here's the problem. Some stress is good for the system, but we have to find what that is. That's called eustress. EU stress, right?
Good stress.
Good stress.
Right.
Reading.
Is
Sudoku. Crossword puzzles.
Crossword puzzles.
Documentaries. You and I are having a conversation right now.
Right.
We don't agree on all things, but it's okay.
It's okay.
We're intercoursing. We're dialoguing with one another.
And it's fun.
And so
fine. We're just learning. It's okay.
Right. Eustress should be higher than distress.
Yes, but it isn't.
But it isn't.
So much.
Right.
What's
right.
the M for?
The M for is maintaining the integrity of your spine and nervous system. And that's where chiropractic comes in.
Chiropractic comes in.
We want to make sure that your spine is mobile. We want to make sure your spine is stable. And we want to make sure your spine is strong. Too many people have said to me over the years, probably thousands have said this. All I did was reach for a cup. All I did was sneeze. I got in an argument with my husband and reached behind to put my bra strap on, and I can't move my shoulders.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And so So what happens is we want to make sure that the spine and nervous system are doing what it needs to do in order to maintain this thing called wellness. Your ability to adapt and coordinate to your environment, which is your body.
Throughout your life. Yeah, wow. I'd love you to come back. It's been such an amazing conversation. I hope
I would love
you've
to come
enjoyed
back.
it. I'm so glad.
Great.
It's such a pleasure to talk with you. And
Fantastic.
I learn a lot from you, really. It's there's everything is connected.
There's an interconnectedness to the universe, wouldn't you say?
Yes, and it's beautiful.
We're all human. We're all fighting the same problems. As I teach at Grace Centers of Hope also, and one of the things that I teach the men and the women going through the program, there may be someone there in their 20s and there may be someone there in their 50s or 60s. What I say to them is, look around. We're all in the same boat. We're all fighting something.
Yeah.
Let's learn to be kind and generous and
completely.
merciful one to another as God is to us.
Yes.
It's not that hard to be nice. You actually work harder to be a jerk than it is to be nice. So just be nice. But all of us are in the same boat. And, if we look at the good book and,
Yes.
And we boil down all the 10 Commandments, even our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ said this, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
And so we're all somebody's neighbor. And so we need to, help
Treat
one
each
another.
other.
Yeah, treat
'Cause
each
we're
other with
neighbors
decency.
at work.
Of
We're
course.
neighbors. I
Yeah.
love that. Michael comes over and sees you, and it's just a really nice relationship. But
It's fun.
We're lucky to live with such to work among such nice folks, right?
That's nice to hear.
But I'm looking forward to having you back. What a pleasure.
Can I make just an offer to your audience that
Please.
if they give the office a call or they go to the website that they see on the TV
Yes.
and they mention the fireside chat, we'll give them a special offer that they can come in and get started for a reduced fee simply
That's
because
amazing.
they paid attention to your broadcast. And
Thank you.
hopefully maybe we'll get some people understanding chiropractic in their body a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's great. So what a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Christopher. Yeah, you do amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time, and I'll definitely have Dr. Chris back. Thank you. Bye-bye.
How far do we do on time?